Okay, I've overrun 2 minutes into Brian's talk, which is unforgivable since I'm supposed to be doing the timekeeping it so I could do a little exercise with you. But Brian has asked me to do something. He said, look, don't introduce me. You can see his CV. It's a stellar CV like all the other speakers. But Brian has 2 books. It Works, A New Approach to Risk and Safety, and Humanizing Leadership in Risk, which obviously I'm really looking forward to. And Brian has asked me to tell you, 25% discount if you'd like to buy one before you leave from his stall. He said, do that instead of introducing me. So I've done that. I'll get off the stage. Brian Darlington, people. Great, thank you.
Well done. So I think, is this working? Working? So I think the only person who's more nervous than me at the moment is Tim, because he doesn't know what I'm going to talk about. So we'll see how it goes. So what I want to do today is really do a little bit different to what we usually do in safety. And I want to talk about the humanizing of safety. And I think over the years, the risk and safety field has moved away from people and more to objects. It's moved away from caring to the 5, I'll call it the red steps, all the engineering controls. So by doing that, I'm going to share my own stories and a little bit of what we are doing in the company that I work for. So to do so, I'm going to introduce you to 6 people. Unfortunately, because of data protection, I've had to blank out 5 of the photographs for today. The first one's Bella, then it's David, then it's Nzeli, Jan, Mark, and Stephen. And these are all people that I've met in my life where risk and safety has had a role to play. But before I do that, I want to do a quick test. I'm going to ask you 6 questions, and I want everybody to have your hands up. If you answer the unsafe answer to the question, put your hand down. Okay, it's like Brexit, so you only get 1 chance. Once your hand's down, don't put it back up. And let's see at the end, how many of us here still have our hands up? Okay, so let's put our hands up. So the first question is, have I engaged with somebody in the past 2 weeks? Easy one. Okay. The second one, do I always wear my seatbelt? Okay. Do I only use a hands-free kit when I'm driving? Or do I talk on the mobile? You can see the hands starting to drop. Okay, now we get to the difficult ones. Do I always hold the handrail? And now you see a lot of hands dropping. When I go up the stairs or down the stairs, at home and at work. Okay, we'll get back to that question. Do I listen to the air hostess on the plane when I flew to this conference? Okay. Why not? Because it's the same old story. It's the same safety talk. Okay, same as industry. We tend to give those same boring safety talks and we think it makes a difference. And the last one, do you read the emergency plan behind the door when you get into your hotel? Or do you put your bags down?
We just have to change your head.
Oh, it's not working. Is it working? Okay, is it working? Who's still got their hands up? Okay, let's give them a round of applause because we don't usually get so many. This was the first time I've been dressed on stage. That's a new experience for me. So, what I'd like to talk about is the handrail. And often I say to people, why don't you use the handrail? And the answers you get is, well, there's germs. And the answer I usually give is, well, when I go to the shopping center and I take that trolley, I've always seen kids biting the trolley. You know, the kids that sit in the little basket? But I've never seen children biting the handrails. So the germs are just as much on a handrail as a trolley or a toilet door. So I want to tell you a story about Bella. So on the 2nd of June 2011, Bella decided to go upstairs in her home. And when she got to the 3rd step, she fell backwards. She twisted and she landed with her head on the floor. Her daughter was there. And she ended up in a coma. And the doctors got, the husband was on a business trip, he got a call from the daughter saying, Mom has just fallen down the stairs. And there's blood. And the father knew that the daughter was very scared of blood. He says, okay, don't worry, the doctor's coming. Yes, they're coming. When he got to the airport, he got a call from the daughter saying, Dad, the helicopter has just landed in the garden. And they rush him home to hospital. What happened was there was a 13-point check. And the doctor said to the neighbors, take the daughter away now because the mother is going to die within the next couple of seconds. They flew her to hospital. The husband got back from the business trip. He could only see his wife the next afternoon in ICU. She was in a coma. She had fractured her face 21 times from falling from the third step. Wasn't holding the handrail. When he got there, the doctor said, if your wife lives, she'll probably never see again because all the optical nerves will be shattered. She probably will never walk again and she'll be bedridden. Okay. This is her 2 years later. None of those things that they said would happen, happened. But obviously her skull was a lot weaker because of those falls. Only falling from the third step. I asked the question just now, and it leads on to what Tim said. Why didn't we have our hands up until the end? If we are safety practitioners and leaders, why don't we follow those 6 rules? Because we are governed by our unconscious. Safety is not always a choice that we make. It was not a choice that Bella made. It was her unconscious. Bella was a woman that had a lot of energy. She did anything that gave her adrenaline rush. She played golf, she scuba dived, she bungee jumped, she paraglided. And she had this wonderful dog called Chelsea. But unfortunately, the day came when she fell over Chelsea, hit her head once more. And because of the injuries, some years later, Bella died. Okay. A few years later, 6 months later, her granddaughter was born, and you can see the sadness in her daughter's face, looking at the granddaughter that Bella never met. Why am I telling you the story? That's my late wife. She died of an accident. She died of an accident because of the weak skull of an accident happened before. That was an unconscious behavior. But yet in safety, we tend to focus on the conscious behavior. And like Tim says, it's the back one that controls us. And we need to shift that focus. And this is the day I said to myself, we are fallible human beings. We cannot control everything. We cannot control. And this is the day in the company, we've taken the drive to change what we do in our own company. And I'll get to that just now. So was it a choice Bella made? Or was it unconscious? And we hear this mantra, safety is a choice you make. Yes, at times it is. But a lot of times it's not. But we tend to focus on that in our investigations, that safety is a choice you make. Why didn't you work safely? Why did you take that risk? Why weren't you thinking? Why weren't you using common sense? So I'm going to introduce you to the next 3 guys. So Mark, Jan, and Stephen all work for the company that I work for. But they all lost limbs because of accidents. So Mark lost his fingers on a converting machine. Jan lost his hand on a paper machine. And Stephen lost his hand in a pulp dryer. And yet in investigations, your focus is, why did you make those decisions? Why did you touch that role? But we don't consider things like heuristics, habits, and gut feel. And a lot of our actions is unconscious, but a lot of our decisions comes from the gut. If I'm driving my car and I want to overtake somebody, I don't think that car is doing 60 kilometers, I'm doing 80, we should meet at this time, and I'll do it. I don't do a risk assessment. My gut feel says, I'm going to go, I'll make it. If I had my granddaughter in the back seat of the car, I probably won't think with my gut, I will think with my heart. The embodied safety, the embodied mind, we don't consider as well in risk and safety. And that's the change we're seeing in the company that I work for. So if safety is a choice you make, then surely unsafety is also a choice you make. Yes, at times it is, but a lot of times it's not, because it's our unconscious and our embodied mind that's thinking. So I want to talk about David. So one routine day in our forest operations in South Africa. David was busy harvesting a tree. And this tree hit him and killed him. not the first fatality we've had in forestry, a dangerous industry to be in. But this is a day that Mondi started to change, where we started putting the person at the center of what we do, and not the objects. We still followed the 5 red steps I talk about, the hierarchy of controls, but we started in forestry to look at people, putting people at the center. And we see that forest operations of ours in South Africa is probably our most safest operations we have across the world in Mondi, or is, they're not probably. But we had to ask ourselves, and especially myself as the leader, were we focused too much on objects? Were we focused too much on hazards, conducting hazard hunts? Were we looking enough at risks? Were we looking enough at people? And what did we have to do to change? We had to do something different, or we'd continuously having fatalities. We'd continuously have injuries. And how could we bring about this design change in our company? So our journey started. And I realized it wasn't only Mondi that had to change. It was the risk and safety industry that we would have to change as well. We had to move away from this linear thinking, the old Swiss cheese model, that everything's linear, and not thinking it comes from all different angles. We've even in our company got rid of zero harm, because we know zero harm is not possible. We've moved it to zero fatalities, zero life-altering injuries. We're going to have slip, trip, and falls. We're going to have paper cuts. We're going to have dust in the eye. We needed to find the balance. And when I talk about the balance, it's in people and the objects. We were focusing too much on controls and physical aspects. We needed to bring the persons back to the center of what we do, and not objects. I met with Dr. Robert Long in Australia, and I started studying through him in social psychology of risk. And that's where we moved in the company with Rob Long now, looking at workspace, headspace, and group space. Looking at the workspace controls, but also look at the people. Look at the headspace, the individual, the mindset, as well as the culture. I talk about the 10 red steps. Those are the bottom ones that everybody knows: elimination, substitution, PPE, admin controls. But all we look at, the top layers, the yellow ones, the psychological elements, the social psychological elements. And the top green ones, the culture of the organization and our subcultures. And I know it's too small to read, but we tend to move now to the upper ones in the hierarchy of controls. We made the change, and it works. And Tim spoke about the book. We give our case study of the shift we've made in our organization to where we are today. And we've anchored them with engagement tools, where we're seeing this open and honest discussion, because people can say what they have to. There's no longer this hierarchy that I have to listen to somebody. I'm allowed to engage. I'm allowed to give my word. So it's this balance that I'm talking about, is this workspace, headspace, and group space. And group space being the culture. So we needed to shift our focus from objects to people, to engaging with people on site. And I want to use a story, and you can see my icon. So workspace being the red one, headspace, and group space. I was on a site in Australia with Rob, and when we got on site, there was this excavator, and a lady was operating the excavator. And Rob said to me, "What do you see?" And I said, "Well, I see the excavator, it's in good condition, and there's shoring, and there's barricading." And he just said to me, "You're missing the point." And I said, "Well, Rob, what are you talking about?" He says, "We'll talk about it later." And we went onto the site, and we had discussions with the leadership team. And at the end of the discussion, he said to the manager of the site, "Do you have sexual harassment on site?" And the manager said, "Yes. We have a problem that our employees take photographs of our lady operator, and they put it on social media." And Robert picked that up because he was thinking about the person, he was thinking about the culture, and not about the object. So in Mondi, we're not saying get rid of what we've done. Let's do it well, what we do. Let's get rid of what doesn't add value. But let's find the balance between the workspace, headspace, and group space. So we're not saying throw the baby out of the bathwater. So we are where we are today because of all the traditional safety. But let's bring in the stuff and the psychological elements as well as the cultural elements. And there's no silver bullet. We've got to take what works for us because our cultures are different. We've got to select out of those workspace controls. When I talk about workspace controls, it's things like safe operating procedures, risk assessments, training, etc. So I was walking in Canberra one weekend, and I'd heard about this tent embassy where the Aborigine people have been demonstrating for 40-odd years against the Australian government, that they can be included in the Constitution, and had the words, "We are young and free," taken out. And as I got close, Kevin saw me and he called me across. And we sat chatting for about 45 minutes, and he was telling me about the Aborigine culture and how close they are to the land and how much it means to them. And he wasn't talking about the Australian government. He was talking about them as a nation. And I left after 45 minutes. When I said, "Kevin, I want to go," he said, "No, hang on." And he got a stick, and we did a bit of a gesture there at the fire that I could go away safely. And I realized when I walked away, I'd suspended my own agenda. I'd suspended my own authority to allow Kevin to give his story. And I think that's what we've got to do as leaders. We've got to allow our employees to tell their story. When we go into investigation, suspend our own agenda. Don't think of what we thought had happened in the incident. Let's ask them, tell us your story. And if we can follow up on gestures and body language, metaphors, we can then really get the story going what actually happened in the incident investigation. So these are some of the tools that we've put in place. So we've got the engagement board process, and the engagement board process really drives our discussions in an open way from workspace into the headspace and group space elements. So it's really about opening up. Why don't you, for example, forklift, why don't you wear the seatbelt? And when one person says, "Well, this is why I don't," the other person's then raise the issues why they do. And the unconscious comes to the conscious in these engagement sessions. And then we don't go out of there having another list of action items. It's really about going out there and changing our behavior as a team and looking after each other. There's some of the tools we use. We've changed our investigation process. It used to be called the Major Incident Cause Evaluation. It's now called Managing Incident Conversation and Engagement. It's about engaging with people. It's about letting them tell us their story. It's about caring. When we had fatalities in the past, what do? Immediately take the statements. Immediately close the area off. Immediately get as much as you can from the investigation. No counselor there that takes care of those people that have been injured. No account given to the people that have been affected by the incident. We tend to focus on getting the statements as quickly as possible. Now, when we have a serious injury, our counselor says to people, "Go home and let's talk tomorrow. Come back when you're fresh." It's about putting the person in the back. And various engagement sessions across our organizations. We've also developed a cultural map where we look at the different elements of culture to look at our culture in the organization. We also don't believe there's a safety culture in Mondi. We have a culture, and safety is just one of those elements of our culture. So I say that safety is a simple cup of coffee. It's about giving the time and the space to other people. Leadership is a simple cup of coffee. Giving the time to somebody else to tell their story. Putting a time aside of ourselves to go and talk to people. And I was in Sweden at a big project, and I saw there was something happening inside a huge smokestack. And when the crane pulled the cage out, the man cage, there was this lady working. And she had been in that smokestack checking the build-up. And I waited for her to clean up her stuff and put her tools away. And then I went to speak to her and I said, "Can you tell me a story? What's happening?" And she told me about the job. And then she said, "I'm going home soon. It's been a long week and I'm going home to my family." So the word family let me continue the discussion, the engagement. And I said, "Can you tell me about your family?" She said, "Yeah, they haven't seen me for the week. They miss me. They're 300 kilometers away." And this is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I said to her, "Are you capable of driving? Are you fit enough? Aren't you tired from the day's work?" Knowing that I don't control her working hours, she's a contractor, but I can care about her. And she said, "No, she's fine." So I said, "Well, will you join me in the boardroom and let's have a cup of coffee. And when we've had the cup of coffee, you can then do your journey. And when she came, she cleaned up, she came, we had a cup of coffee, we had a long chat, and I gave another cup of coffee that she was taking out the machine to take with her. And we actually got a message from her saying this is the first time a leader of an organization has showed that care to her in all her years of working. She's late 50s. So we call it a simple cup of coffee. Zinzili. So I was flying from South Africa back to Europe, and I was supposed to be flying to the Philippines to investigate a fatality for a big mining company. And I got a call from the MD from one of our operations, and he said, we have had a serious injury, and we have one of our employees lying in hospital, and she's fighting for her life. So I got on the same plane that I just arrived in the morning. That evening, I flew back to South Africa, and I went to the hospital. And when I walked into the ICU, her mother was with her in the room, and she was connected to pipes and tubes. And her mother was in tears, and Zinzili didn't know who I was. And I just said, I'm from Mondi in Vienna. How are you? And she said to me, would you mind switching off my machines? Would you mind switching off the life support machines? Because I can't take this pain. And my mother doesn't want to do it. And I said to Zinzili, number one, I can't switch off the machines. I'm not allowed to. But do you have a daughter? Do you have children? And she said, yes, I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I said, well, Zinzili, that's why you don't want me to switch off the machine. You want to go out of here, and you want to go back to your daughter. And when you come out, I will take you out for lunch. And we'll have a good lunch together. And then I left her because I could see she was battling with the breathing, and she was really struggling. And as I walked out the room, the mother came back, and she said, Brian, Zinzili wants to talk to you again. And I went back in, and she said to me, when you come back, would you mind bringing me Swiss chocolates? She had gone in 10 minutes from wanting to die to having Swiss chocolates. Eventually, she came out of hospital. We had lunch 3 times. But the first time I had lunch with her, it was in the clinic in one of our operations. She said to me, you showed me that Mondi is about people. Mondi cares for the employees. And your words to me about my daughter is what pulled me through the trauma that I went. And that made us think that leadership is, again, a simple cup of coffee, a simple lunch, a simple box of chocolates, that we have this, that we have a connection with somebody. We had a discussion last night at dinner with some of the speakers, and we talk about the I and the thou, the me and the you. I'm less important than you. But what is that thou in the middle? What is that little hash? It's what connects us. What connected Zinzili and myself was a box of chocolates. What connected me to the contractor in Dinas in Sweden was a simple cup of coffee. And I think as leaders, that's where we've got to go. We've got to talk to people in their language. We've got to engage with people. I often on site, when I don't know what to talk to somebody about, I ask them to show me their keyring. Let me see your keyring. And there's always something on their keyring. And everything has significance in life. And you'll see, oh, my wife gave it, or my girlfriend gave it to me. Or I like a bottle opener because I enjoy the beer in the evening. And it gives you this discussion, the little dash between me and you. How do we communicate? How do we engage? And that's the trick of leaders, of how do I find that space where I can speak to you. So I'm a little bit ahead of time. I've actually made up a bit of time for you. But this, so everybody knows Nelson Mandela. And I feel that Nelson Mandela is somebody that understood culture, somebody that understood people. Have you seen the movie Invictus with the rugby? When Nelson Mandela came out and the sports council or the sports body were going to cancel the Springbok logo, a simple icon on the South African rugby team's jersey. So much significance, the same as the keyring that I spoke about, the same as tattoos that you might have on your arms or your legs. There's significance to it. But Nelson Mandela knew that that icon was what he could use to bring the nation together. And although the sports council had already decided to get rid of it, he overthrew their decision in that meeting. And in the 1995 World Cup final against New Zealand, when you went into the stadium, it was sad to see how many of the old South African flags you still saw flying. But when they won it, And Nelson Mandela walked out of that tunnel to go and hand over the trophy to Francois Pienaar, the captain. He was wearing a Springbok jersey with a Springbok logo and the same number 6 on his back as his captain. And that stadium just erupted by saying, Nelson, Nelson, Nelson. He knew that that icon, that symbol had significance. It was the connection between him and others, him and the people. And he really understands headspace and group space. And that's that's at least my leader, that if I can think about a leader that knows this and really makes change, it's Nelson Mandela. So these are the 2 books that we've written, and the one is Spore, so that's really a case study of where we are. And the second one is really a story for leaders. It's all about stories, taking Chernobyl, and what did they do wrong in Chernobyl in the investigation? How did they bully people? How did they brutalize the people? It looks at the Hudson River landing, same thing. How was Captain Sully brutalized and bullied during the investigation? And looks at a number of those stories of symbols, signs, of significance, and as leaders that we need to understand. So Tim, I've made up a bit of time for you. It was quicker than I thought. Thank you very much.